This is a very urgent update. Donald Trump has lost the election. The United States of America has made a very serious mistake.
Over in Dagestan, an entire mountain village was flooded.
She is just about to get hit by a car.
Right now.
Individually with each affected family.
I'll show him now, that bastard. Not even the weather will stop me. So what if I'm drowning here? So what? Am I supposed to get to you?
The Orban era is under threat. The current leader is predicted to face a fiasco.
Urgent. Protests in Dagestan. The beginning of a civil war. Orban is disrupting the elections. A state of emergency in Hungary. Trump lost to Iran. He felt sick. Istanbul was attacked. Erdoğan's move? Putin won't come out of his bunker. Let's go. No, I'm afraid that is not quite correct. This is not artificial intelligence. This is real hell in Dagestan.
In Dagestan, an entire village has been flooded.
Yes, that is right.
Dagestan is now going underwater, quite literally. The situation in the North Caucasus has worsened, with 7 fatalities already reported and over 50,000 people across the region now affected by this crisis.
My entire vehicle has completely disappeared.
My car. I just can't stop it, basically.
And only 2 weeks after the start of this nightmare did Putin finally wake up. 50,000 affected, people dead. Only now has he started to timidly broadcast from his bunker.
My dear colleagues, as I bring my remarks to a close, I would like to state the following. We urgently need to create a special government commission to manage the devastating consequences of the recent floods in the Republic of Dagestan.
My respects. The region is underwater and Putin is getting ready to set up a commission. Now that's some geostrategy.
It's a challenging and complex undertaking, and it must be carried out very carefully and individually with every single family affected by this.
Putin wanted to focus on the affected families of the Caucasus, and in general, as they say, it's too late to drink Borhomi. In the Derbent district, because of these hellish downpours, the river is overflowing its banks and breaking through the local reservoir dam. I won't even talk about the sabotage at the Ovska compressor station. Just take a look at this footage.
If the dam actually gets washed away, well, that is it, people. The dam has burst, basically, and it is all over.
And here the main question arises. In all these horrors that are currently unfolding right now, in the Caucasus,
Dagestan faces an epidemic. After floods, foul brown water flowed from taps. In Kaspisk, dozens were poisoned after the first sip.
So who is to blame for all this? Is it just the weather, or is it not only about the forces of nature? It seems to me that the Dagestanis themselves already know the answer to this question.
If corrupt officials didn't steal, there wouldn't have been a flood.
Yes, that is correct. As you mentioned.
If officials didn't steal, that's the key point. And in Russia, they do steal. Here you go, Vitaly, that's the specifics.
The Telegram channel Baza reports that over the past 4 years, the authorities of Dagestan have spent almost 350 million rubles on flood prevention measures. But this did not save the region from flooding and loss of life.
Yes, you heard that right. They managed to spend almost 500 million rubles, split it up among themselves, laundered the money. Here they are, by the way, these Dagestani people's representatives.
Currently, the situation in Dagestan remains fully under the stable control of all relevant government bodies.
Yeah, under control. That's an understatement. Honestly, it's just a disaster.
We just stood there and watched as everything collapsed before our eyes. Look at the state it's in. We spent 18 years building this house.
By the way, there are floods and inundations in Chechnya too. And meanwhile, Ramzan has gotten himself a new medal. Honestly, it seems like there's just no cure for them over there.
Ramzan Kadyrov is once again turning to science. The head of Chechnya has received yet another medal. This time, it's for his contribution to the development of science. Kadyrov is the undisputed champion when it comes to collecting meaningless state awards.
Let's get back to Dagestan. It seems the local people are already tired of putting up with the lawlessness of their authorities. And here's what they're saying.
This isn't chaos. Water hits where the system is weak. When a bridge collapses, it's not the rain's fault. It's the contractor, the project and the signed certificate plus local corruption.
Actually, there's something else I want to say. In fact, the protest sentiments in Dagestan against both the local authorities, these local princes, as well as against the Kremlin and Putin personally, these protest moods have been brewing in the region for a long time. And by the way, I can't forget how, at the start of the major war against Ukraine, Dagestan did not stay silent. And we, Ukrainians, remember this.
Nevertheless, when you consider all of that, the current president of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
However, this did not stop them, and now there are active protests against mobilization in that same region of Dagestan.
Back then, they protested against mobilization.
Well, in general, the mood in Dagestan is understandable, really, especially after the floods and all this bureaucratic lawlessness. And this is a time bomb for the Russian Federation. A civil war is knocking at the door. And Putin is already being directly warned about this from Mynidja.
Alexander Karachev, the official head of the Presidential Directorate for Monitoring and Analysis of Social Processes, warned of the potential danger of civil war in Russia.
But Putin, as you understand, doesn't care. He continues to fight against imaginary Nazis in Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin continues to maintain a cozy and strategic relationship with his loyal and well-fed ally, Viktor Orban, as they continue to collaborate on their shared interests. 2.
The devil met in Moscow. Orban flew to Putin and from the start complained about the war's consequences for Hungary.
Well, Orban has actually been in Moscow for quite a long time. He has no time now for trips to Moscow, no time for trips to the Kremlin. He is also expected to fail miserably in the local elections in Hungary on the 12th. And now he's trying, just imagine, the Prime Minister is trying to disrupt, to sabotage the elections in his own country and declare a state of emergency. Can you imagine what kind of chaos is happening in Hungary right now?
Viktor Orban continues to sabotage the elections in Hungary. The story about Ukraine supposedly blowing up the gas pipeline turned out to be fake and didn't work, so now they're betting on declaring a state of emergency in the country and postponing the vote.
By the way, here's a recent photo of Viktor. And what can I say? I mean, I get it, body positivity and all that, but people online are already joking that before the elections, Orban will give birth to a son. And of course, he'll name him Putin. But you know, as they say, there's a grain of truth in every joke. It turns out that Orban is actually Putin's little mouse. They have this kind of role-playing game between themselves, you know. I'm not joking right now. Bloomberg got access to the transcript of a phone conversation between Orban and Putin, in which Orban, of course, assured the Kremlin maniac of their friendship and offered him help in the war against Ukraine. But now, attention, here's the funniest part. In his conversation with Putin, Orban offered to become a little mouse for the sake of helping the Russian Federation. Oh, what a fool he is. Listen, but if we keep on comparing Orban to rodents, then honestly, he's actually much more of a rat than a mouse, especially when you take into account his current physical shape and appearance. By the way, just recently, Putin secretly shared a story about how he first met Orban, which is quite interesting. Listen, it was a funny story.
He saw a rat, started chasing it, cornered it in some spot. It turned around and started chasing me. And not only did it chase me, it actually even tried to leap onto my head, moving from stair to stair and from landing to landing.
Listen, if Orban nowadays jumped on Putin's head, the entire civilized world would be talking about it. That would outshine the moon landing. But really, Putin and Orban are like Biba and Boba, two buddies. How would you characterize them? Write in the comments.
Orban has broken down.
Orban broke down, or rather fell, under Putin's rule a long time ago. Listen, Orban came to power with money from the Russian Mafia. This statement was made by former organized crime group member Laszlo Kovacs, who was linked to the Hungarian crime scene of the 1990s. to the insider. He worked as a courier for Semyon Mogilevich and personally delivered cash to top officials. Now that's
A twist.
And according to that very same former member of an organized crime group named Kovac, he personally delivered money to Sandor Pinter. At that time, he was the chief of police in Hungary. He would bring him $50,000 to $100,000 at a time for protection and to close criminal cases. And in 1997 to 1998, much larger sums of money were funneled through that same Pinter. And you know for whom? Specifically for Viktor Orbán. At that time, the going rates ranged from $300,000 to $1 million for Orbán's election campaign. Let's listen in more detail to this deadly archive for the, for now, still Hungarian Prime Minister.
One time, it was in the spring of 1994, shortly before the parliamentary elections, Mogilevich's translator brought me a suitcase containing about 1 million marks. It was intended for a young man, but this young man did not want to come into my house. I told him, listen, I have a suitcase with this damn money, and I'm not going to go out onto the street with this suitcase. So I said, if you refuse, then I'll give it back to Mr. Mogilevich and let him take the suitcase with millions with him, because I don't care. And he did come up to see me, together with another elderly gentleman, and I brought the suitcase with the money. At that time, I wasn't interested in who it was. It was only after the parliamentary elections that I realized the young man was Viktor Orbán, who was from Fidesz. Yes, that's right.
And so back in 1998, Orbán successfully secured victory in those pivotal elections with the help of this very money from the Russian Mafia. And how deeply satisfying it is that, having started his political career in 1998 with illicit funding directly from the Kremlin, in 2026 he will ultimately bring a definitive close to his own disgraceful political career by losing the elections.
Honorable Prime Minister, and my distinguished colleagues, it is truly a pleasure enough for us simply just to see you.
The funny thing is, even Trump is now trying to boost Orbán's ratings. To put it simply, he sent his close buddy Vance to visit Viktor in Hungary. And Vance started talking about things that were so nonsensical, it's just completely surreal. There are two specific leaders who have worked harder than anyone else to end the war in Ukraine. They are Donald Trump and Viktor Orbán. Lord save and protect us. By the way, Trump is acting up again, and not in a small way. He's threatening the whole world with the destruction of civilization. Well, as I understand it, he was specifically threatening the destruction of Iranian civilization. At least that's what we hope.
Tonight, an entire civilization could be completely wiped out. Trump once again resorted to using apocalyptic language and essentially issued a direct threat to Iran with destruction if it doesn't agree to a deal.
Well, that's intense. So, a bit of background. Trump has once again issued an ultimatum to Iran. The government in Tehran, of course, firmly rejected the proposal. The Strait of Hormuz remains completely blocked off to traffic, and Trump is truly declaring doomsday for the Iranian rulers and the entire surrounding region of the Middle East. Some kind of wild commotion begins in the world. Several major Israeli television channels actually started a countdown to Trump's deadline for Iran. Accessible right on your smartphone. Deadline. Sofer. Leochol. Perhaps they're broadcasting so Masar Matani can snitch on these things. The uproar is huge. The topic of nuclear war is spreading. Moreover, while the timer is on, Trump is about to strike.
Trump's threats are being interpreted as the possibility of using nuclear weapons. This is stated in an article by The Guardian.
At the same time, Macron is convening the Council of Europe from a military base in the UK. American B-52 fighter jets are taking off. You are seeing these shots right now. Iran promises to retaliate against US strategic facilities around the world and leave the planet without the internet. And in fact, the strikes are actually happening. There are strikes on Baghdad, on Doha again, on Manama. That's Bahrain. The US is also striking Iran. And then suddenly, just when the situation is at its breaking point, Trump posts the following on his social network. Based on conversations with the Prime Minister of Pakistan and Field Marshal Asim Munir, during which they asked me to postpone the deployment of devastating forces to Iran scheduled for today, and on the condition that the Islamic Republic of Iran agrees to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I am willing to suspend the bombings and attacks on Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a bilateral ceasefire, said the President of the United States. And I'm just curious, does Iran know about all this? There are still a lot of questions. What about Israel in all of this? Is currently suspending its military campaign. Well, in short, if you completely detach yourself from what just happened, because in any case, this is still definitely not the end of the war, not by a long shot, 100%. If you set aside all of this Trump-related noise for a moment, honestly, the overall picture for the United States really doesn't look so great, to be honest.
Yeah, that is exactly what I am talking about.
If we look at this objectively, this operation that Trump called Epic Fury is gradually transforming into an epic failure for Mr. Donald Trump himself. The reality of the war
will end in defeat for the US if the Strait of Hormuz remains under Iran's control. In that case, Tehran will declare its victory, according to CNN analyst Stephen Collinson. Yes?
And in general, far from all Iranian terrorists have been eliminated, the situation with the Strait of Hormuz is still unclear. Iranian war criminals continue to behave extremely provocatively and brazenly. And oil prices have risen, they've gone up all over the world. Accordingly, gasoline prices are rising in the United States as well. And this, in fact, is simply devastating for Trump's political career. And now, there are already serious discussions about his impeachment in the United States.
Trump himself has stated that he could be impeached, but the most interesting thing is when exactly this might happen.
It seems that this is already happening. Calls among Democrats in Congress to remove US President Donald Trump from office have reached a peak after his statement that an entire civilization in Iran would be destroyed. Friends, what do you think? Does Trump really face impeachment? It would be very interesting to read your thoughts. Well, what about Putin, you might ask? Here, everything is simple, everything is stable. The bunker dweller doesn't leave his basement at all. I mean, that very same bunker. He's even afraid to step out and poke his nose outside of Moscow. He doesn't even go to St. Petersburg.
Could it be that the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of Russia is afraid of something? The number of public statements by the Kremlin's master has almost halved. The Farideli channel calculated that since the beginning of the year, Vladimir Putin has sharply reduced his activity. Even taking into account pre-recorded meetings, the drop is about 20%. He hardly ever travels to the regions.
Meanwhile, Zelenskyy in turn delivers yet another strong blow to Putin's nose. He swats him, just like a pesky mosquito.
Russia is losing the Middle East, Zelenskyy is in Syria, and Ukraine is gaining influence in these regions.
Yes, Syria is a country where Russia really did dominate for many years. It dominated to the point that Assad settled there like Yanukovych.
Stop. But
all this Russian dominance in Syria is now firmly a thing of the past. A completely new world governed by new rules and a new Ukrainian influence.
Volodymyr Zelenskyy visits Syria for the first time and meets with the Syrian leader.
This step, the visit of President Zelenskyy to Syria, is so significant that the Kremlin still doesn't know how to comment on it. From my perspective, this tells us
that the Kremlin is completely stunned by this.
That's right. However, Zelenskyy regularly manages to mock and humiliate Putin in front of the cameras, in front of the whole world.
I am a completely free person, and I honestly believe that I'm somewhat younger than Putin. No, believe me, that's important. He doesn't have that much time left, you understand? Not that much time left.
Yes, of course, I understand. Moreover, the Kremlin still can't get over the fact that besides Syria, Zelenskyy also met with Erdoğan just the other day. It's important.
Zelenskyy has arrived in Istanbul. It is reported that today the presidents of Ukraine and Turkey will discuss strengthening defense cooperation and security in the region. It is also reported that the day before, Erdoğan had a phone conversation with Putin. Given the current global situation, his talks with Zelenskyy look highly consequential. Don't you think there might be something more behind this meeting than what we see in the standard official news reports? And
look how interestingly this coincided. Zelenskyy meets with Erdoğan in Turkey, and then immediately after, there's a terrorist attack in Istanbul. Putin and his cronies continue to take revenge and cause trouble for the entire civilized world across the globe.
A terrorist attack occurred in Istanbul. On the afternoon of April 7th, a group of armed militants in camouflage tried to attack the Israeli consulate. A shootout broke out between them and the Turkish police, which lasted at least 10 minutes.
Friends, now an important moment. Do you want to own a real trophy Russian strike drone, the KUB? Then I have some very good news for you. The fact is, the 429th Separate Achilles Unmanned Systems Regiment urgently needs to buy a booster for delivering ammunition due to a critical necessity. That's why a contest is being launched for a truly unique lot, provided by this very unit, the almost undamaged Russian strike drone KUB. The QR code is right now at this very moment on your screens. The terms for participation are in the description below this video. And of course, glory to the armed forces of Ukraine. Yes, the AFU are working for glory. And friends, there are a few things you can watch endlessly, like how Muscovites are stunned when they illegally travel to the temporarily occupied Ukrainian Crimea, and witness firsthand exactly what is happening to Putin's military facilities, seeing these devastated ruins after the strikes.
No way!
Was this bombed?
That is absolutely, truly unbelievable.
Wow. Hey, look over there. Wait, what exactly is that strange thing over there?
Just that. They haven't preserved it yet? It was blown up!
And you can also watch almost endlessly, as Alaudinov complains and whines, all for the same reason. He's scared that Ukraine is already striking like this with drones.
It is also important to point out that the situation has shifted significantly, specifically regarding drones. The enemy now has entirely new models, upgraded drones just like these. They fly farther than the previous ones. And
there's something else you can watch endlessly. In the frame are Sobchak, a pseudo-liberal, and Poklonskaya. I don't even know how to describe her. In short, this is a segment without commentary.
Ukrainians often identify Russian spies and hidden scouts by exactly how they pronounce the specific word Polonitsia. Is that even a real word already? Polonitsia. No, it is actually pronounced Polonitsia. Where do you throw cigarette butts? Ashtray. Polonitsia. 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 Does it sound similar? They would have figured me out right away. Friends?
That's all for today. Subscribe to Unyana's YouTube channel. Of course, everything will be Ukraine. Take care.